to introduce. Thank you very much, Sophie. I'm delighted to introduce this talk, which is nearly exclusively going to be given by Masters and Undergraduate students at Goldsmiths, who have been involved in a project set up by the British Academy called SHAPE. And SHAPE is a collective name for social sciences, humanities, and arts for people and the economy and environment. And these are subjects that are going to help us understand ourselves, others, and the human world around us. And I was invited as a researcher into local parks and to try and set up some students at the university to help young people in the local area of Lewisham to investigate and research their parks and see if they could change them for the better. I'm not going to say anything more because I'm going to hand over now to Molly, and the other people involved will introduce themselves too, who's going to talk about this wonderful and amazing project that they've run with local school children, disadvantaged school children who have had some serious issues with their local parks. Okay, Molly, can I hand over to you? Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you, Francis, for that brilliant introduction. So today, in this presentation, we are going to start off by talking about who we are, then we'll talk about what we're doing, we'll go through our progress so far and talk about our next steps. So I'm going to hand over to Sally, who is going to talk about who are we.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sally. I'm going to briefly introduce our research team and give a little overview of the work that we've been doing. We're Anna, Sherelle, Maliha, Molly, and me, Sally. We're a team of researchers from Goldsmiths working on the SHAPE Sustainability Project. We come from a range of disciplinary backgrounds across the arts and social sciences, and we're guided by Dr. Francis Gilbert from the Goldsmiths Education Department. Next slide. Okay, what are we doing? So when we started working for SHAPE, which is a sustainability project in conjunction with the British Academy, we were given a research challenge. Our challenge was to find out how young people at Deptford Green School feel about their local park, which is Fordham Park. Now, Fordham Park is a contested space. It has a heavy police presence. It has issues with litter, and there are problems with safety. So we had some idea of what the students might be thinking about the park, but we didn't want to go into the school pushing our own ideas. We wanted this research to be student-led. And we began to think of the students that we were working with as co-researchers. We spent a lot of time thinking about how, as researchers, we can get around our preconceptions of the park and how to encourage the students at Deptford Green to speak in their own authentic voices. We decided that the best way to do this would be to conduct our research through creativity, which means we weren't just going to sit down and interview the students or give them surveys to fill out. Instead, we did writing exercises with them, all based around the park. The students wrote poems, prose, some of them who are more into visual arts, diagrammated, which is pictures and words. And we found that when we got the students to express themselves creatively, we were able to forge a more enthusiastic, a more comfortable, and ultimately a more honest conversation about issues regarding the park. So our first steps, you can go back to the other slide. So we recruited 12 students, age 11 to 15, and invited them to participate in creative workshops with us, ranging over the course of 7 weeks. Every Tuesday, we go into the school to work with them on their creative projects. We have a video group making a documentary film about trash and social issues in the park. We have a painting group making pictures of their ideal Fordham Park, what it would look like if they had control. And we have a creative writing group making poems contrasting what they'd like in a park with a harsher reality of what Fordham Park is actually. Okay, next slide. All the creative work that we are doing is based around the issues with Fordham Park that were identified through the writing exercise that we did on the very first day with the students. So from the very beginning, we allowed the students to guide us to the topics that were important to them. We believe that creative research could be a good methodology for researching social justice issues. Creative research is a way to bridge the gap between the researcher and the researched. Because we aren't just asking the students to make art, we're making art alongside the students. We're working together. And creative research is also a way of decolonizing our work because it allows students to speak in their own language, not just in the language of academia. Our group has actually forged relationships with the children at Deptford Green. We have fun together, and the students actually express feelings that they're working on something important that feels really relevant to them, something that matters. Through creative research, we can talk openly about climate and sustainability issues and make wonderful artworks. They really are wonderful, that are both informative and beautiful in their own right, but can also be seen as data for the research that we're doing together. It's really exciting. So before we go into, into talking more about what we're doing with the students, we wanted to give all of you a chance to see what we mean by creative writing exercises and experience for yourself how it can generate conversation or bring up emotions and ideas that you might not even know that you've had. So we're going to do a bit of an abbreviated through the mirror writing exercise, which is an expressive writing technique from Jilly Bolton. So you're going to need paper and a pen, or you could use a computer if you want. But what I'm going to ask you to do is, for 5 minutes, write about an experience that you've had at a park or in nature. It could be a good experience, it could be a bad experience. And just free write, which means that you could write whatever you want, no judgment, no sort of like overthinking anything. The only rule for free writing is that you keep writing. So if you don't know what to write, just write, I don't know what to write, or blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, I sort of do this writing centered around nature and parks. And I will set the timer for 5 minutes. And okay, let's get started. Okay. So that was 5 minutes. If you want to comment in the chat, or is that how we're doing comments? Yeah. About how that writing process was, or if you want to share any of, lines from the writing in the chat, please feel free to do that. But so that's what we did with the kids. We asked them to write about Fordham Park for 5 minutes, doing a free write. And then we looked over the writing that we did, and we identified an area of the writing that we wanted to find out a little bit more about. And we did so by doing a second free write and inhabiting the perspective of the area that that they wanted to know more about. We have a message from Sophie. Oh, okay. So let's say in my writing, for instance, just now I wrote about going up to Telegraph Hill, and I wrote about a memory of lying out in the grass. And let's say I wanted to know a little bit more about the grass, or I wanted to know a little bit more about the nature. Now in my second writing, I would inhabit the perspective of the grass. I would actually write as if I was the grass looking out at the world. And I think that we have time to do that? Do the second piece of writing? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So take a second to look over your work, find something in your work. It could be if you wrote about something passing you by on the street, or a tree, or grass, or trash, anything that you want to know a bit more about. Identify that, and then write for 5 minutes, another free write, inhabiting the perspective of whatever it is. Okay. So I'm going to set the timer now for 5 minutes. Okay. So how did everybody find that? If you have any comments, again, feel free to put them in the chat. So that's what we did on the first day, as I said, and through these 2 pieces of writing, we were able to, really start a dialogue with the students. The writing helped to identify for the students themselves what their feelings were, and then to go deeper into those feelings. And from there, we identified themes that were major issues for the students about Fordham Park. And that's sort of where we're going to go now in our talk. And I think Molly is going to introduce the themes that we've identified through the writings. Okay, thank you, Molly.
Cool, thank you, Sally. So yeah, like Sally said, we identified 3 themes in students' feelings about the park, and we did this in collaboration with the students. So you can see the themes on the screen. All students expressed concerns about litter in the park, and they were particularly concerned about alcohol bottles or cigarette packets near the school or by the children's play area. Students also expressed concern about deforestation in the park. And by deforestation, they don't necessarily mean trees being cut down, but they mean a lack of greenery in the park. So students said that the park was grey and dead looking and needed more colour, and a lot of them identified evergreen trees as something that was missing. Something we thought was very interesting was that students identified a problem as deforestation, whereas that is not actually an issue in Fordham Park. Trees aren't being cut down in Fordham Park, but that was the only language that they had to describe their problem with their local environment. But as deforestation is not an accurate description of the problems in Fordham Park, we have renamed this theme to tree therapy to give the students a way to discuss their problems with their local environment. And finally, students expressed concern about feeling unsafe or unwelcome in the park. The park lacks facilities for young people, and young people are often seen as loitering, and they are unfairly blamed for antisocial behaviour taking place in the park. Students were also worried about police, being over-policed, and other users of the park exhibiting dangerous behaviour, such as heavy drinking. So we decided that this was a very important topic to discuss in our research, but we also thought it might be quite a sensitive one. So we renamed the topic to Pretty Parks. This is a nice, easy, accessible term for something that is quite a difficult topic. We hope that by using a very accessible name, we can begin to build a relationship with the students that in the future will allow us to discuss sensitive topics like social justice. So to conduct our research, we use 3 creative mediums based on our own research backgrounds, which were film, visual arts, and creative writing. So we split students into 3 groups, and each group was given a medium and a theme. So we had a video group and litter, creative writing and tree therapy, and visual arts and pretty parks. And students chose which group they wanted to work with. So while the groups are a little bit unbalanced in terms of numbers, it also means that students are very enthusiastic about their topic and were really excited to start creating stuff. So now one person from each of these groups is going to discuss their progress so far. And I think we have Anna up first to discuss the film.
Hi, so I'm Anna, and Maliha and I are part of the 360 filming group, and our theme was litter. And what's really cool about this 360 camera is that it can capture the environment from all different angles. And there's lots of really sort of fun, exciting effects that you can use with the camera. So you can speed things up, slow things down. It's attached to a selfie stick, which becomes invisible once you are filming outside. So it sort of looks like there's no one actually filming it. You're just being viewed by a camera. And it can also do sort of cool effects where it looks like there's like a tiny planet, which you'll see later on in the slide. And what we wanted to do with the students is that we wanted them to use this camera in sort of creative ways and how they can capture the litter around the park and what ways it might be affecting the people who use the park or the animals in the park, and what sort of story can we tell using the camera. So what we first did was that we had a little walk, a recce around the park to see what we could see. And we found that there were quite a few glass bottles left in the park. There was sort of like beer cans, sort of what Molly was saying with the litter. And there was also sort of bags, sort of rubbish bags in the bushes, and also lots of litter outside of the school. So we thought, okay, how can we sort of create little scenes to show this, and what different perspectives can we use? So some videos that we're working on at the moment, there's some still shots you can see right now. So we've got the glass bottles left in the park. There's a girl sort of walking through, kicking them, showing that there's like a bit of disrespect going on, that they're just sort of being left around. And then we've also got another little scene that we're working on, which is at the moment the camera's in the bin and there's litter pickers. Some of the students are using litter pickers to pick up the litter and then to put them in the bin. And we're thinking of maybe doing a before and after shot where there's a sort of video of all the litter outside the school, and then there's a sort of quick speeding up or like a hyperlapse of all the students clearing up the litter and then putting it into the bin. And then on the next slide, we've also thought of another cool idea would be to show the litter from the animal's perspective. And you'll watch the video in a second, but we were thinking how we'd film this is that we'd use the camera and put it in through a sort of bush, and it will be sort of the perspective of an animal looking around and like snuffling around the bushes and seeing the different litter, and it looks quite cool. So yeah, if you want to play it. So yeah, that's one of the scenes that we're working on at the moment. And some more ideas that we have is that we might add some music to the videos, or possibly some poetry or spoken word from the creative writing group, which Sally will explain in a few slides. So yeah, it's going really well at the moment, and the students are coming up with some sort of good, clever, creative ways to how we can show the problem of litter around the park. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Sherelle, and Molly and I were in the visual arts team. We were able to empower students' voices, emotions, and thoughts on the parks, which has a large connection with their feelings, well-being, and sense of self-identity. Through the times we've done the exercises, we've grown to learn more and more of their honest wishes on changes in the system and their feelings currently towards the park as they go around it. In the beginning, we've gone out of the park together and picked up some tree trunks, food packagings, and from this, we've seen their visual reactions and awareness towards what they see, feel, and think. We realized together that the structure of the park, its corners, its people, and its activities, its trees, affects how we operate in the park, how we inhabit the space. We've seen all of us enjoying and playing around with the materials of the found objects, such as wood planks. Some of them have turned the wood planks and painted them with robes painted into spaghettis. It was also mentioned there that there could be a gate to have a sense of entrance and exit, perhaps painted with golden, green, or white. Through these discussions and concrete visual materials to touch, they have opened up about how they want to feel in the park versus how they have felt previously in the present, in the recent times. And through this painting, the paintings here in the picture, we started with paintings of structures of the park, such as wanting to see more trees and benches, cafes, and an allotment with vegetables and fruits. So we've really expressed our cravings for luscious and colors around the park. And through combining these visions together with the students, we're able to look at their visions and ideals of what they think the park should feel like for them. And then moving towards the next slide, we've seen how the kids have initiated doing their own paintings, that they've mentioned that they don't want it to be about the park, but then we reflected on it together, and the paintings turned out to express more about their emotions as young teenagers of being of boredom, anxiety, and self-consciousness, which relate a lot to their feelings on being around the park. And those raised questions on their identity and how they feel in the public space. And through this initiation of painting with colors and their own motivation, we've seen their choice of colors, such as if it's dull colors or black colors or bright colors. And through these abstract expressions, they really had fun, and we've shared our emotions and connected in that way. And moving on to the next slide, we kept on painting feelings and colors, and we've also started to collage in collaborative manner magazines as a strategy to collate, to negotiate and discuss on justice system. And they have expressed their want to see diversity in women, as seen in this collage, in these collages. They wanted to see cultural events, and we started to ask, do we have them yet at this point? And the colors that they chose and the subject and the object was a way to collaborate and build a new system that they wish to have in the future. And so in this in the series of visual arts team, we thought that the students have opened up and understood themselves more. And it was a positive and helpful way to have an intimate and close, a safe space to talk about the justice system, and having the visual representations of their feelings to motivate them to speak up and validate their own emotions. And yeah, through these sessions, we also realized the subtle and sensitive messages to communicate, actions to take, and to persuade the council through enjoyable process of creating. And now we'd like to move on to Sally's workshop on the creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the creative writing group took the theme of tree therapy. There are only 2 members of the group, but they're both enthusiastic writers. We walked around the park first, observing the trees and having conversations about which trees we liked, which trees we thought looked sad, which trees seemed happy to us. And we also did a lot of imagining about the park, especially what it would look like with more trees, more greenery, different types of trees. We went inside afterwards and did a 5-minute free write about some of the ideas they had for a Fordham Park that was lush with trees. We read our work out loud, and then we did actually a form of erasure poetry. I asked the students to circle keywords and themes in their writing, and then cross out everything else, which is actually very, there's something very cathartic about that, crossing out your own work. So we cut out the keywords from our work and laid them out together in the middle of the table. And then together we rearranged the words into one joint poem. So we ended up with one work that encompassed both of their voices. And the poem can be seen as two minds speaking as one. And right here we have an image of that first poem. It reads, "Leafy greenery, I don't have to worry about anything. Feel big spirit solace, all people welcome. No pollution, no litter. Healthy, happy nature. The park is somewhere totally engulfed. Lush crops, city sounds welcoming. People spaced all around me mingle. Ideal shelter. More recycling space, different trees." Oh, can we go back to the buzz of trees offer protection. I feel safe about boundaries. So that's our ideal park. And then after we did this poem, we liaised with Anna's video group, which, as we know and have just seen, is documenting problems with litter in Fordham Park. So after a brief session discussing with the video group, we went back to our writing and we did the same exercise, a 5-minute free write, but this time about how the park actually is. And again, we cut out key themes and made a joint poem. And now we have two poems that present a striking contrast between an ideal Fordham Park full of healthy trees and nature with the reality of it that is full of trash and litter. And that second poem, I don't think we have an image of it yet since we're still working on it, but this is the draft of the second poem. "Help, worried about my children dying, afraid, sad, upset. They know only fear and never-ending problems. Worried of hurting hands, plastic, poison, dirt, dripping last drops. Why, toxic world? A piece of it left on its last legs, concealed trash on branches, world of litter, intertwining of despair." So the contrast is striking. So that's our group. And now we're going to hear from Maliha about
Next
steps.
steps. Yeah. So we're very excited to see how the students' roles have developed in this research in action. From what started off as a group of 12 students, these students are now acting as representatives for the whole school to advocate for real change at Fordham Park. Upon talking to the lead teacher, we realized that improving Fordham Park is a whole school issue. She'd mentioned that the school had written to the local council in the past about adding additional lampposts and providing extra outdoor gym equipment for the school, but there was no response. So we all realized that using the students' creative voices to address the broader issues impacting the school is a valuable opportunity to use with the local council and how much more impactful it would be for their messages to be reached. So the next phase of the project is to further empower the students, in their co-researcher role. So we're planning to hold a workshop on different research methodologies so the students can be proactive in deciding the most effective form of data collection from the various stakeholders in the school. The workshop will provide the students with tools to create their own surveys that they will send out to all staff, the peer groups, the families. We'll also teach them how to conduct interviews that they can apply when interviewing the headmaster, the geography teacher, the science teachers, who have the most important perspective on the park and how it impacts the school. So this way, the students are continuing in their co-researcher role to collate a holistic overview on how to improve Fordham Park that would benefit the entire school community. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about how bringing together our several months of creative research, we're planning a big presentation day with the Deptford Green students to showcase to local stakeholders. We're going to invite local councillors and policymakers from the Lewisham Borough to present a 10-minute film in the form of digital storytelling. The film will include stages of our creative process, how the students found their own unique voices through the creative mediums, and their final creative pieces where the students will address the environmental and social issues that are impacting their local park. We hope that the film will be impactful and aim to have it as a permanent art feature in the park that can be projected onto the school building as a constant display of their creative voices that advocated for the change in their local park. We plan to include a performative activity with the data collected from the surveys and interviews to present the themes and concerns from those interviewed into a demonstrative chant. We feel that creative research has energized and inspired us to call for change in the most visceral way to hopefully move those in power with our message. And we also hope to construct students' critical voices by priming them for a Q&A panel with the council. One of the students just yesterday mentioned to me how they were unsure about the impact of the presentation day because they remember writing to the Borough Council in middle school about a social issue that brought about no results. So I tried to embolden her with the notion that our project would be different because they have a direct platform with the counselors and the different creative mediums through film, poetry, and collages in which we're calling for change might be louder than those written words. And so, which brings us to our hope in pitching for funding, just to cascade the knowledge of how creative research methodologies to improve parks for young people. And we hope that it'll gain momentum. We want to create a toolkit on how to run creative environmental research and to share the benefits of helping the researched to speak in their own creative language, to feel empowered, to share the environmental and social justice concerns that are affecting their communities. With funding, we aim to create a website on our research model, including demonstrative videos, to show other researchers how to carry out this form of research. We would also like to provide workshops in schools to enable other students to find their creative voices and become active citizens for environmental and social change. So through funding, we want to spread this new materialistic approach to academic research. Through our experience, we found that this form of research helps to bridge the gap between the researched and the researchers. And it's created a trusting relationship where the real issues that are impacting the communities are allowed to shine. Simply by enabling these 12 students to raise their voices through creative avenues, we have seen how it has invoked a sense of awareness, emotion, a call for action that academic research simply cannot capture. And we're excited for the prospective outcomes of this pilot project with Deptford Green and the future of creative research methodologies. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Maliha, and everyone in the group. It's wonderful work and great that we've recorded all of that because it's a wonderful presentation. Just to say that we have got extra funding to develop this particular project until the end of July, and so that's a good news. But I know the group are looking for other funding to kind of upscale what they're doing because it's a really exciting model. So yeah, just really Q&A. Sophie, do we have time for Q&As?